What makes the president hard to understand by some, but celebrated by many, is he is action oriented, he is change oriented, and he doesn't have the flowery fluff in terms of speech that some past presidents have had.
Well, I'm just absolutely thrilled to be talking to one of my best friends, one of the most courageous men, I think, in America, and that's Harry Jackson, Bishop Harry Jackson. He pastors a church that's in the greater Washington, D.C. area. That's treading sometimes where angels fear to tread. But this man is fearless. We joined together with T.D. Jakes many years ago now to insist on justice reform. And we made it very clear at the Potter's House. And one of the senators that was running for president, Rand Paul, joined us, and others got on board. And Harry Jackson, I am glad that justice reform passed, and I welcome you to the stream. How do you feel about the success related to justice reform?
Well, James, I'm excited because we had the meeting originally, we were able to come to a consensus with Christian leaders of what was the most expedient way to demonstrate our concern for Blacks, Hispanics, and other minorities. And we came out of that meeting, it was actually 5 years ago, and we came into the presidential campaign. We transferred our influence to talk to President Trump. I remember sitting at a dinner that you were at and actually sharing ideas with the president, with Jared Kushner, et cetera, and they listened. It was amazing. And they prioritized criminal justice reform, and we now know it's law, and it's a huge victory concerning minorities, the least of these in our culture, that has been performed and done by this president of the United States.
Well, I'm telling you what, here's what blesses me. Both houses came together for the benefit of the minorities we were expressing concern for, because there was no question justice reform had to occur because it was totally unjust in the execution and the way these minorities have been treated. And to see both houses, and I know, Harry, wouldn't it be wonderful if both houses of Congress would begin to behave like a family? And you and I are praying that the church will behave more like a family and like the body of Christ. And I think we're seeing it happen with church leaders. Are you amazed at the way courageous church leaders come together from all different backgrounds and camps, so to speak, and they love God and they love one another and they love their neighbor? And for the benefit of others, they lay their swords down and really begin to build. Aren't you praying that'll happen in Congress?
I'm praying that will happen in Congress. We really just need a few principles, things that we're going after, goals, and a strategy. I believe the church is coming together because of the crisis, James, and everybody thinks that something needs to happen. But the voice of the church can give clarity, moral clarity, specific guidelines, and we can make it very, very practical. Wealth creation, home ownership, things of that nature, that education reform, charter schools, having programs that will allow especially minority males to remain in school. I believe we can affect major change if the church, like we did 5 years ago, we've been doing now, if the church leads the way.
Well, and I believe they are, and I think all the great things that have happened, and would you agree there are many great things that have happened in the last 3.5 years that did
Absolutely.
benefit minorities, did benefit in many ways the Black community? And do you see those blessings as answered prayer, the fervent prayer of Christians for the very best, God, the Father's best for the people occurring? And it appears to me that our president and those around him, that administration, are actually playing right into the answer to those prayers. Do you see that?
I see it. You think about opportunity zones. We had one of the first right in the Washington, D.C. area, blighted community, no jobs, no housing. People who had helped the community couldn't get to work. I think that's huge. as you look at the aftermath of this amazing opportunity zone initiative, you see money that will stay in ghetto areas that have been run down for a decade and help build the infrastructure amazingly. There's a place near Johns Hopkins Hospital, I won't go long, downtown Baltimore, that has been blighted out for 3 decades. And it's the place during the rioting where the CVS was burned up. That whole area is earmarked as an opportunity zone that will have a permanent lift that will operate year after year for several decades in a much higher place. So permanent change is happening. And I think the Supreme Court justices change that the president has accomplished will help the minority community and every community because we're going to have fair justices having constitutionally oriented decisions that will help keep America biblical, safe, and on track.
All right, I want to ask you a very pointed question.
Sure.
In 3 months, just over, we're going to choose the next president of the United States. And we're going to choose leaders, representatives to represent the people. Now, I want you to tell me the truth. When you look at the options, you look at the choices, tell me as an African American pastor, someone who loves people, someone who loves across the typical divides and points of division, and really cares, and with all your heart, Harry, you and I have become very close. We're family. You want the best from the one Father that knows best, God. You really want that, and you want it for everybody because God does. When you just look at it, who do you believe running for these highest offices would best represent what is best for the people you love and that God loves so much? Just tell me what you actually think.
Well, I actually think that it'll be Mr. Trump, that he should be reelected. Now, I've got the benefit of maybe 15 or more times sitting in front of him. We had a listening session at my church, June the 5th, followed by June the 12th, a listening session with the president. June the 5th, it was with the vice president. I talked to them, I've sent the White House memos, information, and I can tell you that both of those gentlemen, the vice president and the president, are listening and they're working at implementing change. What makes the president hard to understand by some, but celebrated by many, is he is action oriented, he is change oriented, and he doesn't have the flowery fluff in terms of speech that some past presidents have had. So they'll talk money out your pocket and do everything else. But he is sincere. I've seen his compassion. Good Friday, I was in the Oval Office invited by the president. He allowed me to pray over the country. I talked with he and Vice President Pence, and I know for a fact the man is not a racist. He's an advocate. He's a soft hearted but skilled, sort of like a fighter who will fight for you, take punches for you. His goal is to win. So I've come to see that man, a man of courage, a man of compassion, and I'll trust that man. What I'm scared about with the Democrats is the fact that for about 30 years, 3 decades, I've watched them make promises. It's like showing up on the Sunday before the Tuesday of the election, and we're in this adulterous relationship, the Black community, with the Democratic Party. They keep making promises, but we don't get dinner, we don't get flowers, we get no romance. We only get lip service that the other guys are prejudiced, trust us. If we get weak minded, weak spined Biden, that's how I see him, in office, it's going to be a disaster because the action that's needed won't be taken. The platitudes will come. The I feel your pain would be there, Jane, but I don't believe they'll follow through. And it's time that the average Black person thinks about the fact that they need somebody with a platform that will follow through. And so that's what I've been working at, especially since I've been so close to the president.
Well, I've I've watched his response to you and the other minorities. I've watched him be very teachable, amazingly. And then I've watched him work fervently and fearlessly to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. You have, in a matter of weeks, a book coming out. Tell us the title of the book, what you hope it accomplishes. And we just got just a few minutes left here, so please let us know what that is and what you hope to accomplish.
The book is called A Manifesto. A Manifesto. It is a subtitle called Christian America's Contract with Minorities. But the reason we named it a manifesto is this. There are a lot of Christian concepts, but can we get all the Christian concepts about life and religious liberty and opportunity? Could we put those into a format? So I have a 9-point manifesto that talks about education reform, talks about the need for marriage as a strategy, rebuilding the family. It talks about certain public policies like criminal justice reform. It talks about the need for minorities to get involved. It talks about wealth creation. Did you know that 41% of Blacks own homes versus 76% of whites? And so we got to create wealth. That's part of the generational uplift of all minorities. And then we go on to entrepreneurship. We deal with righteousness and justice. We deal with empathy versus retaliation and the dignity of every human being. So we've got a manifesto with specific recommendations. That's what we need. Instead of Black Lives Matter being cried out, let's show how Black Lives Matter. Let's be specific about it. And we're going to say not only is police reform important, which the president has done a magnificent job of putting out an executive order on that, but also Black abortions have got to be blocked. Also, Black deaths in places like Chicago and Detroit have got to be stopped. Also, Blacks losing their lives, in a sense, to prison and then never getting back up on their feet, that's got to be stopped. So all Black lives matter, but we need a strategy. James, burning down stuff is not the answer. We need a strategy. So a manifesto is, in fact, what we need, thus the title of the book.
Well, it's great, and it's going to take the focus of the Black community on the well-being of the Blacks that you just mentioned. The president and national leadership needs to be concerned about and focus on the entire Black community, and all national leadership, whatever party, needs to face the facts that we've all got to address it. We've all got to be concerned and involved, and we're going to have law enforcement and police protection. Harry Jackson, keep up the good work. God bless you. I'm glad we're good friends.
Thank you, James. Love you, man.
Love you too.